So this asks the question, who is the Messiah who is referred to in Daniel 99:26? Now, Jewish commentators, and if you do end up debating this with any Jewish person or discussing this with an Orthodox Jewish man who knows what he's talking about, or from his point of view, he will tell you that the word Messiah, used here, Mashiach, is a word which means anointed one, and that's true. Mashiach does mean anointed one. The word Christ, which is used in the New Testament, is the Greek for the same word, Christos, anointed one in Greek, Mashiach, anointed one in Hebrew. Also, the word Mashiach, used as anointed one, was used of kings or the high priest in Jewish writings, in the Old Testament, in fact. So, if you talk to Jewish people, you may be told by them that, well, you get worked up about this word Mashiach, Messiah. Actually, it can just mean a high priest, it can just mean a king, so it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with what you think about being the Messiah. Well, that's what they would say. On this basis, from that point of view, they would say that the Anointed One, here in Daniel, is viewed by two possible explanations. The man I was talking to, I mentioned when we discussed this, actually came up with this one, which you'll find in the Jewish Publication Society, that the Mashiach, who was cut off just before the destruction of the Second Temple, was the high priest, Onians III. I'm sure you've all heard of him. No? Well, he died in 171 BC. Problem with that one is, of course, that this person and this date have no connection whatsoever to the destruction of the temple in 70 AD. Second one, which is more likely used, is one used by the famous Jewish commentator Rashi, a Jewish rabbi who wrote in the 12th century. And he says that the Mashiach who was cut off was King Agrippa, the king of Judea, from AD 27 to 93. The problem with this one is that Agrippa II was not cut off before the city or the temple were destroyed. In fact, he was a kind of turncoat who helped the Romans, and their general Titus conquered Jerusalem. He was rewarded with for this in helping Rome, and lived another 23 years after the fall of Jerusalem, which kind of cuts him out from being the anointed one as far as I can see. Also, it's hard to see how a wicked king, who he was, of the line of Herod, an Idumean, not a Jew, could possibly be considered anointed as the kings of Judah in the line of David were anointed. So I think we can fairly clearly discount both of those two possibilities as being the anointed one of whom Daniel is speaking. Which leaves us with another possibility. This possibility was put to a Jewish man who was studying at a yeshiva in Warsaw in Poland before the war. His name is Rachmiel Friedland. He wrote a very good book, which I recommend to you, called What the Rabbis Know About the Messiah. And he was faced with this question. And he wrote in his book the following: I knew that the secrets of Israel's redemption and the Messianic days was hidden in the book of Daniel. So he knew that much. I also knew that some of the great Talmudic and post-Talmudic rabbis had plunged into the study of this book and even plummeted the hidden secrets of its symbolic signs and ciphers. The Talmud and Midrash discussing Israel's redemption often refer to the book of Daniel as a revealer of the secret time of Messiah's coming. So he affirmed that the book of Daniel had something to do with the coming of the Messiah. However, at the yeshiva, I was ominously reminded of a warning and a curse pronounced against those who try to figure out the end. The Talmud says, may they drop who try to figure out the end, for they say, since the time of his, Messiah's coming, has already arrived, yet he did not come, therefore he will not come at all. Sanhedrin 97b. Oh, that sounds a bit puzzling, doesn't it? But actually what he's saying is that don't look up this date, because if you look up this date, you may come to the conclusion that the Messiah should have come, but he hasn't come because we don't believe Jesus is the Messiah, therefore there's no Messiah who's going to come at all. So from that point of view, there is a discouragement from studying the book of Daniel. And if you go to the yeshiva down the road and ask the young men if they study the book of Daniel, you may find that they are discouraged from doing so, because it reveals the date of the coming of the Messiah. Well, he goes on to say, the study of our greatest sages brought them to the conclusion that if the dates in the scriptures are correct, the Messiah should have come in the first century of our era, or thereabouts. In a Talmudic portion, it is written concerning the timing of the Messianic age, the school of Elijah taught the world is to be for 6,000 years, 2,000 years without Torah, 2,000 years with Torah, and 2,000 years Messianic times. Midrash Rabbah, Gen 98:3. Now, according to these dates, therefore, these dates in Jewish writings confirm that the Messiah should have already come. So the Messiah should have come some 2,000 years ago, sometime in the 1st century. Anybody think of anybody who might have done that?